Most Amazon candidates walk into their interviews thinking it's all about showing ownership or delivering results or having bias for action. And those do matter. But what quietly kills more Amazon interviews than anything else is what I call the dark side of success. Push these qualities too far and you don't look strong anymore. You look unbalanced and even dangerous. I'm Nick, a former Amazon bar raiser. This is video 6 in a 16-part series where I unpack each Amazon leadership principle and show you how to master them in your interview. Today, we're talking about earned trust, the antidote, the quiet, unteachable skill that balances everything else. And without it, Amazon is not going to hire you. I'll share 3 real stories from my time at Amazon to show you how earned trust works, and I'll start with the lowest point of my Amazon career. Among other things, Amazon hired me to start Amazon Game Studios. We met with Bezos over many months, convinced him to start the project, and I signed 19 brand new intellectual property games over the course of just 9 months. I describe this in detail in this other video here. So we built the team, we started building the games, we launched 3 of the 19 games, and everything was coming up roses. And then all of a sudden there was a curveball. Amazon bought Twitch. Twitch is a platform, a streaming platform for PC gamers primarily. This means that primarily people who play video games on their personal computer use Twitch to broadcast and stream their games live. And there was a problem. The 19 games that Amazon Game Studios has signed were all mobile games. Because at the time, mobile was up and coming. At the time, even a game like Candy Crush had not established itself on mobile. It was still a Facebook game at the time. And the jewel in Amazon's crown, Amazon's own game studios, is not building any PC games. They're building mobile games. We closed the Twitch acquisition of September of that year, and within a month, we made the decision to cancel all of our unpublished mobile games and pivot to PC games. We made the decision to notify each of our studios that we're terminating the project with them without cause. To give you perspective, these game studios we were working with are small independent game shops. Usually they employ anywhere from 20 to 50 people, and they work with large game publishers, 1 or 2 or 3, to pay the bills and build games together. So I had to make calls to each one of these studios and notify them that we're canceling our games with them. I had to make those calls around Christmas time. It was incredibly hard for me because those were my babies. I had signed them with each studio, convinced each studio to work with us from scratch. And it was incredibly harder still for the game developers because that was their livelihood. I would call each studio and the feeling was horrible. We would cancel the game for no cause and we'd move to the next call. By about the halfway point of the cancellations, I could predict exactly how long each call was going to take. Each call was taking 43 seconds on average. 43 seconds. You tell the studio the news about the cancellation, and there's nothing they could do. What can you say? Amazon is terminating you without cause. They would just hang up the phone. And to make things worse, one game studio in Texas, I'm not going to disclose their name for privacy's sake, had not one game with us, but 2. And their whole livelihood, the whole studio was working on these 2 projects with Amazon. We canceled both projects on that same call in that same 43-second period. It was hard, and it was Christmas time. So that weekend, I went to the Symphony in Seattle with my wife and with my mother. Imagine I am dressed to the nines. I have my cufflinks on my tux. I have my fancy white bow tie. I am surrounded by glitter, by festivities. There's chandeliers. all around. In the intermission, I walk out in the lobby and it's past 9 p.m. Seattle time and my phone rings and I look at it and it's the CEO of that Texas studio. Let's call him Michael. And Michael's calling me and I'm surrounded by this splendor and this holiday festivity. And he's in Texas, so it's almost midnight his time. And I answer the phone and I hear him yell at me. He was in a bar. He was swearing at me with everything he's got. And I just stood there under the chandeliers, under all the splendor and this symphonic music. And I took it. Why? Because I was the person who sold him the dream. And now I was the one who was taking the dream away. That was a lesson in earned trust. Now let's talk more about what earned trust means. The Amazon description of earned trust focuses on being vocally self-critical more so than anything else. The reason behind it is that in Amazon's early days, earned trust was a separate leadership principle, and there was another principle called vocally self-critical. And then in time, Amazon merged them into one principle called earned trust. Now, it's great to be vocally self-critical as displaying earned trust, but what I think the definition of earned trust lacks in is how you display earned trust to others, being invested in the success of others. It's giving up your own benefit to an extent for the benefit of others. Otherwise, if you exercise the harder leadership principles too much, things like deliver results, high standards, ownership, bias for action, you will turn into a monster. You will leave dead bodies in your wake. Nobody's going to want to work with you. Earned trust is the leadership principle that balances and handicaps these extremes from happening. I'll give you an analogy. If I have my cup of hot water here, and then I get some coffee, ground coffee, and I pour the coffee in my water. There's a lot of coffee. And I stir it with a chopstick. If I pour too much coffee, like I just did, the coffee is no longer tasty and refreshing. It doesn't give me a pick-me-up anymore. It's literally undrinkable. It is bitter and horrible and undrinkable. So the way to make it drinkable again is to add cream, more cream. So I have to put a lot of cream to make this thing drinkable. So I'd put some more cream here. And now the coffee tastes better. This coffee needs way more cream, but you get my point. So earned trust wraps itself around other leadership principles and it augments them. You can display earned trust both in good times and in bad times. I'll give you examples for each. In good times, if you're a manager, you can push your team, you can push your people and give them exposure to other leaders. So you can give them meaty projects to accelerate their careers. You can help them shine in front of others. And eventually, that would help them get promoted. You are putting their benefit in front of your own. You are invested in their success. A quick analogy I have for you, for those of you who are chess players, is that a pawn, when it goes to the other side of the chessboard, turns into a what? A queen. The pawn becomes a queen. And similarly, with earning trust and hire and develop the best, you nurture your people, you protect them, you support them across that chessboard until they reach the other side and transform themselves into something much bigger, into a queen in this case. In bad times, earned trust is just as powerful and it enhances other leadership principles such as ownership, for example, or backbone. In bad times, when things are hard, you don't point fingers at others. You absorb that blame if you have to. You stand up to them. I'll show you a prop that my boy made for me for this. That's his Captain America shield. And he found out that I'm recording this video and he wanted to build a prop for me. I think it's pretty incredible to me. And you are pretty much like a shield. You shield your people and you demonstrate ownership and backbone when the times get hard. That's how earned trust works. It enhances other leadership principles. And then finally, if you accelerate my example of earning trust in bad times, and if those bad times turn into a failure, like my experience with Michael in that symphony hall under those chandeliers, then earned trust shines even more brightly. Failures demonstrate earned trust better than accomplishments do. That's why it's incredibly important to prepare at least 1 or 2 big failures in your Amazon interview. I'll give you another analogy. These are 2 sheets of paper and they're both clean. But if I crumple one of them, crumple it, and then I unpack it, I can learn much more from this crumpled sheet of paper. Clean, perfect wins don't teach earned trust. Failures do. Failures is where earned trust is forged, and that's why you must prepare failures in your Amazon interview. My final story today is how earned trust is the one leadership principle that has the same bar across all levels. Regular leadership principles, things like ownership, deliver results, high standards, you name it, they have a scaling bar. Earned trust is the one exception to that. Similarly to starting a fire. I'll show you. If, let's say, this little candle was a level 1 at the very lowest level at Amazon, and this big candle was level 12 at Amazon. If I light up these candles, which I'm going to do right now, hopefully I don't start a fire, the small candle has the same flame as the large candle. That is how earned trust works as well. The impact of earned trust shines through, regardless of the level. The flame burns just as bright, regardless if it's a small candle or a large candle. That is why the bar for earned trust is universal across all levels. Earned trust is one of the very few leadership principles which Amazon considers unteachable. If you lower the bar on a bunch of other leadership principles, customer obsession, for example, as many praises as we have sung to customer obsession, if you lower the bar on customer obsession, but you raise the bar on a bunch of other leadership principles, in the debrief after you interview, the most likely consensus would be that the team can teach you customer obsession because customer obsession, among lots of other leadership principles, is considered to be a highly teachable leadership principle. Earned trust is not. If you lower the bar, if you fail that universal, uniform bar for earned trust of whether you put the benefit of others in front of your benefit at times, of whether you are genuinely invested in their success, of whether you're vocally self-critical, if you lower that bar, that is unsalvageable. Earned trust is going to be interwoven through your answers. You either raise the bar or you don't. You naturally should display that in an interview. And that's going to dramatically increase your chances of getting hired by Amazon. Okay, now you're ready to go to the next leadership principle, which is high standards. Watch this video here next, where I'm going to walk you through how pivotal the high standards leadership principle is for your Amazon interview, and I'll see you there soon. Good luck.